I've been blasting No More Tears by Ozzy Osbourne to every speaker in my house this week. Just opening Spotify and smashing all the AirPlay speakers and hitting play. But to say that these speakers vary in quality is a bit of an understatement. One of them is an Apple TV connected to a soundbar. One of them is a HomePod mini. One of them is my home theater system in the basement, which isn't too bad. And the last is a pair of powered speakers that are in my living room. And I wanted the most central speakers in my home to be integrated into our smart home. And that's exactly what I did with the Arylic LP10.
I'm Patrick Hunt, and I want you to like smart home tech as much as I do. Real solutions with Matter, Apple Home, and a little creativity. Weekly, I'll show you how small upgrades can make a big difference. Welcome.
These powered Klipsch speakers do have a beautiful sound, but in terms of wireless connectivity, they're just Bluetooth. If you're interested, I put a link for them in the description. What I've learned about myself in our Apple home is that I don't want to put HomePod minis in every single room of the house. Furthermore, I really don't want to rely on HomePod minis to be the main source of music entertainment, especially in the most central part of our home, because their sound quality is really just passable for small rooms. And I definitely can't afford the HomePod stereo pair, but HomePods aren't the only answer and Apple products aren't the only answer. So what does it mean to integrate speakers into your Apple home? Well, you can ask Siri to play music to those speakers and it'll learn which app you like to use. Or you can include the speakers in scenes and automations in Apple Home. That really only works if you have an Apple Music subscription, which I don't. So I'll be speaking largely from the perspective of a Spotify user. And Spotify in Apple Home is limited. And by limited, I mean basically non-existent. I did try to automate Spotify playing through some AirPlay speakers via a shortcut, but the phone needed to be unlocked, and so I didn't get very far. So I kind of gave up on that. But you don't really need Apple Home integration. Not really, at least. It's easy to confuse the Apple software, the Apple connectivity, and the Apple hardware, and know exactly what you have or even what you're really using. For example, when you play Spotify to a HomePod, you're just using AirPlay. So that could be any AirPlay speaker. It doesn't support Spotify Connect. So I don't want to use the Apple speakers and I can't do a whole lot in Apple Home. So where does that leave us? Really just AirPlay and Siri commands. And in a lot of cases, it ends there. And there's really nothing wrong with that. One of my favorite use cases is to be able to walk into a room and say, "Hey Siri, play music to the living room speakers." And that could be through my watch or through my phone or even the Ecobee Premium. I saw a lot of people were actually disabling the Siri feature on the Ecobee Premium. If there's one piece of advice that you take away from this video, if you have the Ecobee Premium installed in probably a central place in your home, put a pair of AirPlay speakers in the same room, and now you have a voice-controlled entertainment center, and you're not limited to the sound quality of HomePods or HomePod minis. You can put any speakers in there that you want. Okay, so what is delivering AirPlay to these speakers? I'm using the Arylic LP10, and it's not just AirPlay, and it was this point alone that was my main selling point on this music streamer over other music streamers. And that is that it supports Spotify Connect. This means that the streamer takes over the Spotify stream from my phone, and my phone could explode into a million pieces and the music goes on. This also relieves any bandwidth issues that you may be experiencing when AirPlaying music to a speaker. Feel free to watch the video in my description on Wi-Fi where I go into a little bit more detail on what exactly that means. I connect the LP10 to my powered speakers via optical out, which is an alternative to Bluetooth for the source of the music that the speakers also supported. It also has a line out for an analog receiver. My brother, who gives absolutely zero shits about anything that I talk about on this channel, was actually very interested in the LP10 for this purpose alone. And I think I found his Christmas present, which I can say here because he's not watching. You can also connect a USB drive with about 1,000 songs on it or 16 gigs. It supports dual band Wi-Fi and it has an Ethernet port for hardwiring. It comes with a remote, which I immediately threw out with the box because I hate remotes, but I'm pretty exclusively going to be controlling this with my phone and with Siri commands. Although I hear that I may have lost some functionality that is only accessible through the remote, like adjusting the treble and the bass, but that's okay. I was actually lying about throwing the remote out. I just really don't want it. It has buttons on the top, which control the source, volume up and down, play, pause, seek, forward and backward. When I was using a streamer that didn't have any buttons on top, I had to kind of hack together this functionality using the SwitchBot Hub 3, which I keep on the record stand just above the speakers. You'd think that I just want to use the remote, right? Well, no, it's not really about the convenience. It's that I only want to be adjusting the volume of the music source, my phone, and not the speaker volume. And I can leave the speaker volume at a comfortable place that I like and only adjust the volume of my phone. I don't really like doing the dance of turning the speakers up and turning the source down, or turning the source up and turning the speakers down. Am I the only one that really cares about this? So I'm really happy with this device. The buttons on top, the price coming in at under $100, AirPlay, and of course, Spotify Connect, which I think sounds better than AirPlay 2, but the technology behind it suggests that I'm wrong. But I will clarify that technically the sound quality is coming from the DAC of the powered speakers and not the LP10 when using the optical out on the LP10. If I were to use one of the other outputs, then those would make use of the internal DAC on the LP10. So when someone is speaking on the sound quality of the LP10 and they're using the optical out, you're not really getting a true picture of the sound quality of the internal DAC on the LP10. It's using the DAC of whatever device the LP10 is plugged into, whether it be a soundbar or powered speakers. So it's not going to be very representative of what the LP10 can do. So in terms of negatives, there's really just two, and they're pretty small. The first being that I had to install an app in order to get this thing set up. And I really don't like having extra apps on my phone for every device that I install in my house. I'd rather just keep it very simple. And then the second, and arguably the bigger of the two negatives, is that the LP10 doesn't allow my powered speakers to ever go to sleep. So they just stay on indefinitely. With other music streamers that I've used in the past, if I were to pause the music, then both the streamer and the powered speakers would go to sleep. There's no lights on and they're both effectively off, but both are still available through Siri or Spotify to play music through them again. They just need a brief moment to boot up and reconnect. With the LP10 and my powered speakers, they both just stay on indefinitely. I can even hear a faint white noise coming from the speakers. On the bright side, when I want to play music to the living room speakers, there's no boot up time. When I hit play, the music just starts playing instantly. And this is just using the optical out connection. I didn't test this behavior using other connectivity. So for $99, I call this a win for multiple entertaining areas throughout the house, especially for the Spotify users who are feeling a little bit left out by Apple and other major brands not supporting Spotify Connect. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.